Hi guys, my name's Ruth Royall. I'm a songwriter and I'm also a vocalist. Huge thanks to Urban Creative for inviting me to be part of this episode of Be Brave, Be Kind, Create. I think it's wicked what they're doing with their YouTube channel, so definitely make sure you subscribe. Today I'm going to talk about collaboration. So collaboration is a huge part of what I do as a songwriter. I end up working with a lot of people, whether it's on top lines or whether it's a co-write. Also on the production side of things, I end up collaborating all the time. And I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of an insight into that process because it can sometimes seem a little bit confusing about how that actually happens. So I do all sorts of writing with people. So I do loads of writing with graphics, for instance. We do lots of songwriting together. We both have a huge love of synths, so end up writing lots of synthy tunes. And I'm also part of a collective called Paper Dragon, which I sing for. And we're an incredibly collaborative act. And the way that we write songs is incredibly collaborative. So I thought through the tracks that we have, and I think one of the most collaborative songs that we've got is a song that's coming out next called Self-Control. So this song started as a very rough idea between myself and John, and we were writing it together in this studio, and we literally just got up the Logic session and were playing around with ideas, lyric ideas, had a few chords going, and then eventually kind of landed on this theme of needing space, needing to be, left alone to think, so we kind of played with that, and it actually kind of related a little bit to something that was happening with John, and also I'd had similar experiences, so we kind of pulled on those experiences and almost created a character in this song that was going through the actions of a day. And we sort of told that story. So that's kind of the beginning of the track. I then created a very, very basic beat idea in Logic, literally just using like the sounds within Logic, no special plugins, nothing analog. I was literally just playing around with rhythms. And so kind of came up with this sort of Latin sound. Then it got sent over to the other two dragons, and Bruce started developing that idea of percussion and the origins of that and what it was we were looking at. We then started bringing other people into the mix and ended up going into Real World, which is an incredible studio based near us in Bath. So it was a great opportunity to be there. And we thought, hey, okay, let's develop this song even more. Like, what can we do? So what I'm going to show you today is a little bit of the footage from studios, a little bit of the project to kind of show you that process and how this song came to life, and a little bit of the thinking behind how we did it. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to open up the original project and show you what went on. It's going to sound amazing. No, but I mean, it is interesting to see like the first draft or like the first idea and kind of see how it progressed into what the song is now. So I was building up like I think it was like the orchestral percussion or something like that, and I was just like layering up different stems to create a rhythm that I could hear in my head, and it was like Latin sort of feel, which then kind of like sparked the ideas of some of the recording techniques that we use later on in Real World, which was cool. And then I had this fat bass line in my head, which I think I played, is it like Juicy Pump bass? Yeah, only the best. But yeah, it was the melody that I was really hearing. So we then took that later and we did that on a Moog with my friend Dorian Charles Prophet, who's an amazing keys player. So we got him to sort of come in and interpret that, which was cool. So you can kind of see here, you can see the initial idea starting to form, and you can hear it. I woke up to my alarm. Sun's still down and it's dark. 22 messages to read from you, and you start by asking me why I got this attitude. And then of course we had like the lyrical ideas that were starting off as well. So this was all the beginning sections. Then what we did after that, once we'd had a little bit of discussion between us, we were like, right, we're going into real world, which was amazing. So we pulled on using real instruments and also taking those initial melody ideas and, you know, playing with the sound of the room, like working with it's like incredible grand piano that they had, and then working with our amazing drummer John Clark and Dorian Charles Prophet on the keys, and kind of just pulling on their skills and what they could bring to the table. So this is what happened in Real World. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
So we've been chatting a bit about self-control, the track. We've been to Real World, kind of seen a little bit of that, but there were loads of other processes that went on. I know that the percussion, once we'd been into Real World and recorded it there, Bruce, you took it away and you did quite a lot with it from then, didn't you?
Yeah, well, the what I could hear in your original sketch was some kind of Afro-Cuban influences, and so the brief was really to focus in on that, and then to ask John, who then performed. He happened to be quite familiar with that style, and so that was his kind of brief, and he sort of developed those kind of things. But the track got progressively a little bit faster and a little bit more energy to it, so it went up 10 BPM, and I felt that it needed a bit more drive in the beat, so I put a beat to it, and also edited quite tightly the piano parts. So if I just play you a little snippet of where that went next, it would be this track here. And from that, it just sort of progressed into the chorus bit. And by this stage, really, it was just some tight editing on the piano, and then using Serum to offsets, almost to give it a bit more of a rave feel. The whole story had the whole song had a bit of a story to it, and so it really felt like it was going into that kind of aesthetic, and so it sounded like this. And so yeah, and another idea that sort of grew out of this, because it started to sound a little bit like a Bristol Roots, I don't know if you can call it Bristol Roots drum and bass, but a bit of the Ronnie Size influence, and thinking about getting some real double bass in there. So we then, with Chris's supervision, we had Holker come in and play some double bass, and then we worked on an aspect of sort of feel within the verse. So that was using some double bass elements. Also asking John, I can't remember what he used exactly. I know it's just his old dub siren that he just sort of interjected a few elements of some incidental.
That's Paper Dragon John, not Drummer John.
Yes.
Lots of Johns.
John Savage on the dub siren here.
Mm.
So there we are. I mean, there was quite a, maybe quite a small shift, but significant ones based upon what the track was and how it started to move. And
Pick
so,
up
yeah.
the pace. Yeah, it was wicked. And then Chris, you were doing all sorts of stuff, but you were like experimenting with reverbs as well when we were in Real World. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, Real World has a plate reverb, an EMT plate reverb, so it's really nice to use a proper analog reverb over some of the sounds, just to give it a bit of a posh sound, which you kind of get from real plates, and you can't really get from in the box. And it's very analog kind of feel to it. But also at the Real World, my main function was to replace some of the synthetic sounds that we'd been writing in the box or in the DAW, which was Logic. And Real World has a Yamaha C3 grand piano. So we mic'd that up within the room using close microphone techniques and room microphone techniques. I think we used Neumann U87s and Sherps H10s, something like that, for the room. And we recorded that through some Neve mic preamps, 1081 preamps, regarded as some of the best preamps you can get. And my way was my main function there was to balance the sound and make sure it was still working in context of the kind of synthetic drums that we were using. And also we did percussion recording as well, where we used the nice mic preamps at Real World, and also recording a Moog through the desk as well.
Is that still in it, the Moog?
Yeah, I think the Moog is underneath the bass.
Stayed in there, yeah.
Underneath the piano, I think, actually.
Yeah, nice.
And I think there might be some at the end of the track as well. But all of this was part of it was part of a collaborative effort by using real musicians. And when you're using real musicians, you get a kind of groove which takes away from writing music to a grid, as you do in the DAW, and just getting a musician to kind of to do the odds kind of playing around the groove as opposed to being bang on, which just brings a bit more life to it. Really.
Yeah, totally. Gives it that dynamic as well.
Also, Chris, you mentioned that you know when you use such a big room sound like Real World, then it just the room characteristic itself ends up making the sounds much larger anyway. So you end up having to strip the tune back. I think that was from one of the big components of the development, if I remember rightly.
Well, yeah. I guess one of the aspects of miking up instruments is that you actually get air movement between the distance from the sound source to the microphone. So when you've got a room in there as well, you do the brain actually fills in the gaps that you've got extra space within that sound, and that creates the extra space and the larger sound. Obviously, when it comes to mixing a genre such as drum and bass, then it has to be refined back down to work typically with the genre. But with what we were doing by using real musicians and real instruments and real analog equipment, is that we are adding, I guess you could call it, a big analog sound to bringing that to the table, which is really nice.
Yeah, and like this, you know, this track has been such a collaborative process, and like right from beginning, it's not even finished. Like we did a horn session just yesterday actually, which has come in later, of us kind of like pulling the track apart in a way, you know, kind of like coming back to it, feeling what it needs, and I think it's had so much input that it's got to a really, I feel like it's got to a really exciting point now. But yeah, it has been a really collaborative process, this song particularly, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the parts that we recorded with musicians, we're not using. You know, likewise, I think we've done 3 different vocal recording sessions, and we've revised certain synth sounds that we're using. So that's all part of a collaborative process as well, because obviously we have to decide on what parts we want, and rather than one person going, I'm going to decide on this bit and go with it, it does go through a process of collaboration between the 4 of us on what sounds good and what doesn't, and what we think sounds good and what doesn't. So it's quite an interesting aspect to it, but like with the other tracks that we worked on, we always kind of seem to end up in in a place where we're all happy with the sound.
So by this point we were pretty happy with the track, but we still felt like there was something missing. So we had a little think, we had a little chat, and we also had a listen. We made sure we were listening to other music to kind of get inspiration and get some ideas and things like that. So we decided we were going to try putting some horns on the track. Luckily enough, I live with a horn player, so I asked him very nicely, and we did a horn arrangement session and kind of got some ideas. Once we were happy, we then organised a proper horn session, and I spent a little bit of time putting together some organ chords for the intro, which I think kind of connected the song up and sort of connected that initial intro with when the energy comes in the first bridge. So we kind of got to a point through discussion, through listening to other tracks and, pulling in all of these different ideas. And finally, we were pretty happy with the track. You guys enjoyed that and you found it interesting and hopefully useful as well. If you want to check out anything about Paper Dragon or about me, you can on Instagram. I'm Ruth Royall Vocals, and Paper Dragon is Paper Dragon Official. So yeah, go check us out. Take a listen to some of the music, see what you think. And thanks again to Urban Creative for inviting me to be part of this video. I've absolutely loved making it. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it. Bye.